So if this is the first time you're joining us, this is Recruiter Fuel. And the reason I love doing this, even though it takes up a fair amount of time, is to talk about real issues that recruiters actually deal with
Sure.
on a consistent basis. And this is one of those real issues. Scott and Marianne, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
So I got into a pissing match on Facebook this morning. And the comment was, as recruiters, the only thing we should be worried about is what a job description says and what a resume says. And I disagreed with that and said there's more to a human being than just what's on a job description or on a resume.
Right.
What do you think on that? And we're going to get into a couple of other questions.
First of all,
I'll go ladies first.
Let's get his name and phone number, and we're going to report him.
I'm going to protect the innocent until
my
I razz
goodness.
him a little bit. And he came back, and we went back and forth for about 20 minutes at 6:30 this morning.
Wow.
About this whole concept of all my job is as a recruiter is to match up the resume and the job description. I have no other responsibility to know anything else, in essence, is what he said. I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right from a recruiter's perspective. What do you guys think? You both have been doing this a long time.
Is he saying that he doesn't need to understand what's on the resume outside of seeing the right words or acronyms?
So-
Or is he saying the only thing that matters is what experience is listed on that?
So
that
it was
CV?
heavily weighted to the experience because his comment was, that's what my managers want.
He's not even talking to the candidate.
Well, he's talking to the candidate, but he's just focusing, it seems, what's on the resume. But the key here was that's what his managers want to hear.
Wow.
So what's your take on just going after what's on a resume or on a job description and matching them up versus thinking about the entire human being?
You can't do that. You need more than just a person that has many levels. It's not just one-dimensional.
So what
You
else?
have
What else
to
is there
know
aside from knowledge and skills?
What is their motivation? What are they looking for as far as the next step? Why are they even looking? Why are they open to even speaking to me? There's so many different things than just a resume and words on a paper. I need to know what's motivating this person to kind of move on. What are they looking for in their life?
How do you find that out?
Establish a relationship.
But how do you do that? So that's a term that we use a lot in
Yes.
recruiting is you got to
You
have
have
a
to.
relationship.
You have
Just
to.
in sales, you got to have a relationship.
That's true.
Break that down. How do you do that and what do you start looking for? And then specifically, and Scott, I'll start with you,
Yeah.
what are the questions you ask to go beyond knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs as everybody calls them? You and I talked about this a few weeks ago.
Right. You're never going to get fully away from that, obviously, because the person has to have the capabilities to do the job. But that's only such a small sampling, as we talked last time, about what makes up the entire individual. And to Mary Ann's point, it's what are the motivations of the individual? What behaviors have they shown relative to competencies that you're looking for? If all you're ever going to do, and I guess shame on hiring managers if they're still thinking this way, but if all you're ever going to do is say, do they have this many years of this? Can they program in this language? Do they have the background in this? In our industry,
Scott,
that's all that matters.
We know managers do this. We know they go to recruit. We have clients that come to us and say, all I care about is what's on this piece of paper. I want to know, do they have 5 years of experience and so forth. So I agree with what you're saying. How do you get there? And if your managers do that to either one of you, what do you do?
Well, you have to educate to start. I mean, to your first point, how do you go there with the candidates? Candidates are used to being approached of, okay, well, Steve, I've got your resume in front of me. Let's talk through each of these bullets, or let's talk through all your
Why'd you
experience.
leave?
Right.
What'd you do? Why'd you leave?
Right.
What'd you do?
Exactly.
Why'd you leave?
Right.
What'd you do?
So they can go back to that person can go back to the hiring manager and say, they left this role for this reason. They left that role for this reason. And that's all they're going to do is kind of regurgitate whatever the candidate has told them.
And our hiring managers are trained to get that from the recruiter.
Right.
And that's why the turnover is so high.
But how do you, and I agree with you, but how do you start to change that? If this is your manager, Marianne, the person you're supporting says, Marianne, all I want is this. How do you get them to understand there's more to a human being, as you said, and Scott, as you said today and a couple of weeks ago, that there's actually more. There's what we call the head and the heart, in addition to knowledge, skills, and abilities.
Yeah.
How do you have that conversation?
It's still a challenge, but you have to take baby steps. You have to let that manager know, listen, what we've been doing in the past hasn't been working. Look at our history. And talk about why this person is looking for certain skills, looking for certain jobs. why they're motivated. You just can't see a resume nowadays, especially in this market. There's too many people out there who are looking and are getting jobs. We don't have enough people to pick, and you have to be very picky with your conversations with these candidates. You can't just say a resume and say, this is the right job for you.
Okay, so let's think about it in the context of teams, right? So a salesperson is a salesperson is a salesperson. 3 sales leaders all looking for the exact same profile. Are they really looking for the same person in most cases?
No.
No.
Why? What's the difference?
The way that they're going to want their salespeople to interact with their clients, especially their long-standing clients. I think of, the relationships that you've fostered over 2 decades here. Marianne being here 12 years, myself
Thank
being...
you for telling
You're welcome.
everybody.
Myself being here. Well, you started here when you were 14.
That's
so
right.
okay.
Thank you.
Myself
Child
being
labor
here,
laws were out
myself
of
being here
effect.
6 years. Being here 6 years, we want to make sure that we're not just continuing to foster and manage those relationships, but we're continuing to grow those relationships. And so, if I'm leading a sales team, you can talk about metrics driven. How many calls are they going to make? How many dials? How many of all that? And you can get great answers, but you're not really exploring the relationship. How they manage relationships, how they grow, and foster deeper relationships with their clients. With a salesperson, the more you can penetrate into an organization, the more business you're going to bring in, but you're also going to start becoming a trusted resource.
So their
clients.
approach is different. The way they interact with the client is different. The interact with the team is different, but yet they're filling the same exact job description, right? To a certain extent, they are.
Too often, because HR still uses, as we've talked about before, canned job descriptions.
Yeah.
I could think of almost of a sales role. It would be just interchange the product or service that's being sold, and everything else is going to look almost exactly the same.
Right.
So that's why they all feel like they're looking for the same individual. And if you can sell this, you can sell that. They've not really spent the time to really understand, speaking to the hiring manager, speaking to people in the department, in the organization, of the whole 3/3 of the individual.
Okay, now you took my comment of 1/3 versus 3. We'll come back to that.
The last thing I would say is, you talked about, and Marianne brought up, you have to train your hiring managers. You also have to start retraining candidates on how they should be interacting with recruiters who care about the entire spectrum in prison, because as we all know, these candidates are so used to getting calls from recruiters where they just want to talk about what's on the bulleted format of the resume, and that's all they care about.
Yeah, it's the analogy that I used a couple of weeks ago, Scott, when you and I talked, is this: would you buy a car after only seeing 1/3 of the car? So if all you saw was the trunk and the back fenders and the back wheels and everything else was tarped over, would you buy that car?
No.
Nobody would buy the car, right? But yet we're buying candidates potentially based off of knowing about 1/3 and not understanding what's in their head, not understanding what's in their heart.
Right.
Makes no difference. And then these recruiters, like the one that I dealt with this morning, the name I will not release, gives us as recruiting professionals a bad rep. And you already said it causes more turnover because we're filling it based on, oh yeah, I did, not about how it fits the team, not about how it fits the organization, not about where the gaps are that you're trying to fill within the team.
Right.
We're missing all of that. Would you agree?
I agree.
In many instances.
Absolutely.
Most definitely.
So, this is a topic we're going to continue to have conversation on. We started it 2 weeks ago. You guys got to keep coming back to Recruiter Fuel, because these are the types of conversations that we have. Let's get to the heart of what's really going on. On the 28th of this month and on the 14th of next month, or on the 12th of next month, we'll get the dates set out. We're going to be talking more about this head, heart, and KSA concept to make sure we understand the whole human being. And we'll have more of that posted up on the website sometime later. But guys, thanks for coming back and having more about this conversation. Of course, I got riled up because of the Facebook pissing match that I got into this morning. Excuse my French on that one, but I appreciate you guys coming back.
Not a problem. Thank
Happy
you.
to be here.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. Come back, and we'll see you 1 week from today.